Hey y'all, welcome back to another Hey y'all, welcome back to another Bible study. Hey y'all, welcome back to another Women of Peace Bible study. I'm Mina.
I'm Tia.
And today we're going to be in the book of Micah.
Yes, so we're going to do chapters 1 through 3.
In chapter 1, verse 3, it says, "Look, the Lord is coming. He leaves his throne in heaven and tramples the heights of the earth. The mountains melt beneath his feet and flow into the valleys like a wax in a fire, like water pouring down a hill." So there's something to be said about him leaving perfection and descending back down into darkness where he's already completed his work on the cross. That is how grave, that is how important, that is how detestable these times are to him, that he would literally leave the kingdom of heaven to come back down at such a time as this. So our shrines are that detestable to him. They don't glorify him. He comes down in the fullness of his glory, and he brings with him the mountains beneath his feet. Think about that visually, the gravity of his size and his glory, right? That the ice would melt down into water and flow into the valleys that would split, and fire would melt them like wax. That's the level of gravity. Like he is the Son of Man, and he's fully man, but at the same time he's fully God. And so this is how the earth, physically, the element of earth responds to him, that it would melt before him. So imagine then if he didn't even come for that. He didn't even come to make the earth obey him. He came to make his children repent. So falling in line with how easily the earth obeys him, it immediately responds to his glory. Just like animals are said over and over in the Bible, whether it's the story of Samson, whether it's the story of Jonah, animals know how to immediately obey God. Earth knows how to immediately obey God. When it's time to rain, when it's time to die, when it's time to heal, the assignment is done. And so this is there's no wasted words in the Bible, and this is the level of obedience that is to come when he descends back down in his fullness of glory. So I also love what Micah does here. He says, who is to blame for Israel's rebellion? Where is the center of idolatry? We know that when God asks questions, they're not for him because he already knows the answer. So these questions are for us. And he's saying in the capital city. So he's taking it to the heart of the matter. He's not here for the peripheral. He's not here for the followers, but he's here for the heart of the matter, the leaders in this, hallelujah, hold on. In this wave of darkness, in this agenda of Satan, he's coming for the heart of the matter, for the capital city. He specifically highlights Samaria, the capital of Israel. And Samaria in the Hebrew means watchtower. So this is of importance to God because what he set up to be a watchtower, to take watch, right? To be watchful, to be mindful, to be his eyes over his land and his children has become so perverse that it's now a host of evil and perversion. And that's why he's coming for it as the heart, the capital city.
All right, so in verse 6, it says, "So I, the Lord, will make the city of Samaria a heap of ruins. Her streets will be plowed up for planting vineyards. I will roll the stones of her walls into the valley below, exposing her foundations." And I want to stop there because it says that he will expose. And I just think that it's important to note that, like, in this prophecy, what Micah's talking about is something that is within the nature of our Lord, and it's in his nature to expose.
Ooh, that's good.
So he's going to expose what the foundations are for Samaria, and in another sense, he's going to come and expose our foundations. So at that moment, kind of gives you an opportunity to do a little heart check, like what foundation are you standing on, and what foundation are you building your faith on? And do you need to tear the whole structure down and start new and start with a new foundation? Because that's okay, but do you need to?
It's interesting because sometimes you'll notice as you check your foundations that it's completely outdated. And you've built a lot of your life around an idea that you formed in your mind when you were like 14, and you're literally no longer that person. So all it takes is, like you're saying, just a simple check sometimes.
Yeah. And then in verse 7, all her carved images will be smashed. All her sacred treasures will be burned. These things were bought with the money earned by her prostitution, and they now will be carried away to pay prostitutes elsewhere. Visually, to me, when I read this, I'm seeing all of her carved images being smashed, and I'm seeing that when the Lord returns to put an end to idolatry, that it's not going to be in like a gentle manner. Like, he's coming to smash the idols. Like, he's going to end idolatry violently. He has been warning us against idolatry since the beginning of the Bible. So all throughout the Bible, like, one thing that's consistent is the Lord's frustration with man as man turns to idols. So it makes sense that when he comes back to set things back in place and put things back in order, that would be something that upsets him so much that he's going to do it like aggressively. He's going to smash these idols. He's going to make sure to like put an end to it, turn it to dust. It says that these things, so these idols, they were bought with the money earned by her prostitution, and they will now be carried away to pay prostitutes elsewhere. So because the money was never good and never clean, never pure, it's rotating back into the same system. And prostitution is a form of exploitation, right? So when he's talking about Samaria was willing to exploit itself. And that's why that money is gonna run back into another system of exploitation, because it was never good and it was never pleasing to the Lord. Therefore, I will mourn and lament. I will walk around barefoot and naked. I will howl like a jackal and moan like an owl. For my people's wound is too deep to heal. It has reached into Judah, even into the gates of Jerusalem. Don't tell our enemies in Gath. Don't weep at all. You people in Beth Lepera, roll in the dust to show your despair. You people of Shapir, go as captives into exile, naked and ashamed. The people of Zanan, dare not come inside their walls. The people of Bethazel mourn, for their house has no support. The people of Marath anxiously wait for relief, but only bitterness awaits them as the Lord's judgment reaches even to the gates of Jerusalem. Harness your chariot horses and flee, you people of Lachish. You were the first city in Judah to follow Israel into her rebellion, and you led Jerusalem into sin. That right there, they were the first one to follow sin.
The capital.
Yeah, it's like,
you start words off with a capital letter. That's the beginning of the matter.
yeah. And it's like, basically, they were the trendsetter. Like, if we're trying to call it like a modern day thing, you know, like,
okay,
they were the trendsetter. They were the first ones to do it. They were the influencers. They were the ones who made it popular and made it cool and made it seem like it was something that people should do. So they made sin look appealing. And in my mind, I just think of like Las Vegas, which literally has the nickname Sin City. And it takes that nickname with pride.
Yeah, it makes it look seductive, fun.
Yeah, and everyone's like, oh, Vegas, fun.
Let's go spend our money.
Let's go and sin in Sin City.
What happens in Vegas
stays in Vegas.
Surely it does not.
Yeah.
Surely it does not.
So it's
I can
just
name a couple things that do not.
It's just the fact that when you're the first one to do something, when you're a trendsetter, or when you're an influencer or whatever, understand like the magnitude that comes with that, because you're the one who's starting it and now everyone's following you. So if you're starting something that is not pleasing to the Lord and everyone is following you, understand that like there is a certain level of responsibility that you have to take in the fact that you led people away from.
You'll have to answer for that, yeah.
So,
yeah.
And this is not to like say nothing bad about Vegas, like as a place, like, you know, like, but I'm just saying. So then it says in verse 14, send farewell gifts to Moresheth Gath. Now, y'all know that the names and the city names in the Bible are hard to pronounce. So don't come in here judging me, okay? I didn't go to seminary school. I just love Jesus. I'm just here. So I'm going to continue to pronounce stuff wrong. Y'all just going to have to work with me, okay?
Yay.
Feel free to leave the correct pronunciation in the comments below. So anyways, he says to send the farewell gifts to them. There is no hope of saving it. The town of Asiz has deceived the kings of Israel. O people of Marasha. Marasha?
Right.
I will bring a conqueror to capture your town, and the leaders of Israel will go to Adullam. O people of Judah, shave your heads in sorrow. Now this is where I'm like, O people of Judah, shave your heads in sorrow, for the children you love will be snatched away. Make yourselves as bald as a vulture, for your little ones will be exiled to distant lands. So, in Judaism, if you have a death of a lost one, someone who you're mourning, one of their signs that they're mourning is that they shave their head. So whenever you have a like death of someone who's close to you or close to your family, you shave your head bald.
Come on, cultural context.
So
I didn't know that.
When we're thinking about this, Micah's in the Old Testament, so this
Sure.
is before like Christianity. So at this time, this is when Judaism is the primary religion that all of this is based on. So he's saying to shave your heads in sorrow. He's warning like you're about to shave your head because it's about to be done. Like
it's not looking good. Yes.
You're prepared to be in a long period of mourning. He even says, make yourselves as bald as a vulture. He says in another version, enlarge thy baldness as the eagle, or make yourselves as bald as the eagle. So he's saying like you'll be bald, you know what I mean? It's gonna be a minute. Prepare, because like what's to come is serious, and there's going to be a serious period of mourning. And specifically, he says that the children that you love will be snatched away. And when I read that, that just really like,
that's heart-wrenching.
It hurts my heart. I am a Sunday school teacher and I am a mom, and I'm just like, the idea of my children being snatched away is such a reality that it terrifies me. But they're growing up in this world, and the reality is every day they're going to be exposed to a different narrative,
right,
that seems cool because it's popular. And the narrative that I'm raising them on, which is the Bible, like I'm going with biblically sound information with my children, that narrative doesn't sound popular. That narrative doesn't sound hot. And so the idea of my children, you know, the Bible says, raise your children up in the way they should go and they shall not depart from it. So like for me, I'm like, I have to hold so tight to that verse. But like, even when I think about children who aren't my own, just like some of my children in Sunday school, and I'm like, you know, I'm like really trying to like work with them and teach them and make it fun and interactive. But just the fact that like they could grow up and depart from it. And like, it's just terrifying, but it's very much prophesied though. So like the reality is like, not all children are gonna stay on the path.
Yeah.
And you see it as from generation to generation. If you look at your grandparents' generation, most of them were believers. Then you look at your parents' generation, you see a lot less believers. And then you look at our generation and you see like a huge drop off of believers. So like the next generation, like, you know, the pattern is already being formed. So it's like we're going to be losing children to this.
Wow.
And so when I read that warning statement of shave your heads as bald as a vulture, I'm just like, the reality of like that is just
I think something
terrifying.
that's important to think about too is that, okay, so vultures, they feast on dead things exclusively. It's like one of the only animals that only eat on death.
Wow.
They're sustained by the kingdom of darkness, right?
Wow.
But the good news is that this is in the Old Testament. This is before the reckoning of Christ. This is before the blood of Jesus. So at this point, becoming aware of vulture-like tendencies, of the ways in which you're feasting on death, it's literally a prime time, and it's never too late to receive the blood of Christ, to receive your salvation, because we don't have to offer up lambs and rams and goats and go to a priest anymore. You can literally receive your salvation today because he already finished it for you on the cross.
Wow.
Just keep going, a couple books, you get there.
So good. So good. So that is chapter 1. We're going to go ahead and go right on into chapter 2 now. Okay, let's dive into chapter 2. So it starts off with, what sorrow awaits you who lie awake at night, thinking up evil plans? You rise at dawn and hurry to carry them out, simply because you have the power to do so. I was like, oh. Like, you just have the power to do so, so you're going to do it?
He sees what's premeditated in your heart.
Yes.
Wow.
And that is pretty much like what I was wanting to get at here is, again, checking your heart posture. But even more so than that, like in alignment with how your heart posture is set up, is how your rest will be set up.
Ooh.
So he says
Uh-oh.
that they lie awake at night thinking of evil plans. And then they rise at dawn and hurry to carry them out. So they're going to sleep late and they're waking up early to go and do evil.
Wow. Oh, no, she didn't.
So when your heart is off and it's not in the right place, what's going to happen? Like, your rest will be disturbed.
Wow. Micah was spitting.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you want a piece of land, you find a way to seize it. When you want someone's house, you take it by fraud and violence. You cheat a man of his poverty, stealing his family's inheritance. But this is what the Lord says. I will reward your evil with evil. You won't be able to pull your neck out of the noose. You will no longer walk around proudly, for it will be a terrible time. In that day, your enemies will make fun of you by singing the song of despair about you. We are finished, completely ruined. God has confiscated our land, taking it from us. He has given our fields to those who betrayed us. Others will set your boundaries then, and the Lord's people will have no say in how the land is divided. And then in verse 6, he says, don't say such things, the people respond. Don't prophesy like that. Such disasters will never come our way. And just right there, I was kind of shook because it's like, he's literally giving the whole picture, right? He's prophesying, he's giving you the whole, what's going to happen, detail by detail. And that's just not what they want to hear.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
And so they're just like, please stop.
Bye.
Like, why are you talking this? Why are you talking this foolishness? Why are you talking crazy? Like, don't
talk to me. Got my face.
Don't say that. And then on top of that, they're saying such disasters will never come our way. So not only are they saying like, I'm not listening.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear you, so I'm choosing not to hear you. But they're also saying, in addition to that, choosing not to believe you. Even though your warning is coming directly from the one above.
Wow.
So I guess like my main takeaway with that is just be careful with your ears. Your ears are super sensitive. Like literally going swimming is enough to like throw your equilibrium off and like you can get totally dizzy and end up like having to go to the hospital for vertigo just because your equilibrium is off because of your ears. It all comes down to that. And so it's just like, be careful with what you hear, what you choose to hear, what you choose not to hear, what, you know, all of it. Your ears bring in sound and filter it out, and then let your mind take in what it is going to like accept.
Wow.
So like, just be mindful of your ears. Be mindful of what you're hearing. And yeah, be mindful. But they don't want the truth. So they said, don't say such things. Verse 7, should you talk that way, O family of Israel? Will the Lord's Spirit have patience with such behavior? If you would do what is right, you would find my words comforting. Yet to this very hour, my people rise against me like an enemy. You steal the shirts right off the backs of those who trusted you, making them as ragged as men returning from battle. You have evicted women from their pleasant homes and forever stripped their children of all that God would give them. Up, be gone. This is no longer your land and home, for you have filled it with sin and ruined it completely. Suppose a prophet full of lies. I'll preach to you the joys of wine and alcohol. That's just the kind of prophet you would like.
That's funny. You would like that, wouldn't you? Huh?
So he's prophesying. They're mad. They're like, oh, I hear it.
So this the type of prophet you want then?
And then Micah is coming back at him like, yeah, I'm not surprised that you don't want to hear this. You're not living right, so of course you don't want to hear this. And then he follows it up to say, y'all want false prophets. You want somebody in your ear who's going to tell you what you want to hear. Tell me the things that sound good. Tell me what makes me feel good. Like, let me continue to indulge in things that I know are wrong and tell me that it's okay. That's what I want you to tell me. I want you to tell me that it's okay that I continue to do these things that the Lord has already convicted me on. Because I haven't said out loud that the Lord's convicted me on it yet. So I want to continue to play stupid and let someone else who is called tell me that it's okay for me to keep doing it.
Ooh, I'm sorry, that was ignorant. I probably had to edit that out.
So they want false prophets, y'all. They want the false prophets.
In verse 12, the next says, I'll surely gather Jacob, all of you. How many of you know we are his Jacob? We are his holy city. We are his Israel. I'll surely assemble you, those who are left of Israel. I'll put them together like sheep in Basra, like a flock in its pen, noisy with people. He says a lot, but it can be elusive if we don't really break down what these words mean. So for me, I had to be like, okay, what is Basra? He's gonna put us together like sheep in Basra. What is that? It's a holy city, but it means enclosure. He's gonna put us in an enclosure. And our prophet Micah here is in the school of prophecy under the prophet Isaiah. So this prophet references a past prophecy found in Isaiah 63:1. And here it references Basra again, and we're remembering that means an enclosure. And so in Isaiah 63:1, it says, the Lord stomps in anger. He inflicts vengeance, and he finds no helper. This is what he's going to do in this enclosure. So it's not like you have a cute little sheepdog gently gathering you into a pen. No.
Not a sheepdog.
This is literally a place where the Lord is going to stomp out all that which does not glorify him.
He going A-Town stomp on it.
Period. But all that brings bondage, that's damaging, that's harmful, that's evil, that's perverse, that's wicked, that doesn't represent love. He's going to stomp it out. And I gave y'all the Spark Notes version, but it's quite violent. Though, like, he's talking about literally stomping out everything in this enclosure. He's getting it all in one place so he can just get it one good time when he comes back. And it says in verse 3 that we'll no longer be able to go about in our arrogance. This is the Lord's posture toward arrogance. And this is why we've kind of mentioned before the Antichrist. And this is a way that Satan can be very discreet in using God's people as Satan's hands and feet on earth. Because arrogance is something that God finds detestable, such that he would stomp us out for it. But it's so easy to take a posture and a position of arrogance throughout your day, throughout your lifestyle. I have plenty relatives who are just permanently arrogant. Because you know what arrogance is? Arrogance is an exaggerated sense of our own abilities. So when we make our own abilities an idol within our hearts, our ability to provide, our ability to solve every issue, our ability to think for ourselves, our ability to think for others, there's a God whose thoughts are higher than our thoughts. There's a God who has planned our hope and a future. But when we place all of that, literally the whole world in our hands, we have made an idol of our own arrogance. And God's posture toward this is serious, y'all.
Wow. And even just to connect it back, how easy is it to become arrogant when you're put in a position to where you're highly regarded?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know? So it's like, of course, as he was talking about the first city, the first one to lead everyone to sin, of course, as everyone is then following them, they're going to become more arrogant. Like, it's an alignment.
Yeah. And, you know, I think a lot of times, like, when we think about the Bible, especially the Old Testament, it can seem really lofty and, like, back then type of thing. But let's break it down in a practical sense. So, like, a position where you're highly regarded can be like a head of household. We can start there. Like, let's just take it home. Not even in the world, but right at home, right? Yeah. Where you're a head of your household, right? And that can lead to a position of arrogance, because the Bible does say, right? Children, obey your parents. Wives, regard your husbands, right? And so as a man of God, you're like, yeah, it's biblical for me to be highly regarded. And you're not wrong. Yet, for you to be a child of God, a son of God, you have to be comfortable with being his bride, right? And so what is the bride but yielding? What is the bride but submitted? What is the bride but humble and in a position of a servant? At the same time as you're highly regarded, at the same time as you're in a position of power, rightfully so. And so in this way, as we're sons of God, and simultaneously the bride of Christ, how can we embody this high regard that we do rightfully have with the utmost humility? In verse 3 of Micah, it also references the Lord bringing evil upon this land in this enclosure as something that's irremovable from their necks. So for animals that are domesticated, they'll often have a yoke on their neck to limit their movements and mobility and their freedom. And so the Lord is saying, like, his position toward arrogance is such that he's bringing an irremovable stronghold, an irremovable shackle. That's what our own arrogance brings upon us. And so in the moment, it can feel minimal, right, to be arrogant toward someone you don't think deserves your full attention or, you know, respect in any regard. But what that does is it brings on an irremovable yoke onto ourselves. Jumping back down to verse 12, Micah also references Isaiah 34, 6 and 7. That's where this scripture specifically comes from. Because like I said, he was a student of the prophet Isaiah. So in those scriptures, it says, the Lord has a sword. It's sated with blood, gorged with fat, the blood of lambs and goats, the fat of the kidneys of rams. The Lord has a sacrifice in Bozrah enclosure, a great slaughter in the land of Edom. Wild oxen shall fall with them, and young steers with the mighty bulls. Their land shall drink its fill of blood, and their soil shall be gorged with fat. So this is a slow deterioration of their land that's being described here. But going a little bit deeper than that, so the Lord is raising his sword against Bozrah. And what he showed me as I dug deeper, as I dug into Micah and went a little deeper into the prophet Isaiah's book, he said that the fat that is covering his sword, the fat of these choice animals that were used as offerings in the Old Testament, it represents the healing. Because if you're familiar with how fat was used in the olden times in this land, is that it would be used as a salve for open wounds. You would place the lard of an animal, it would thicken up, and you would place it over an open wound to quicken healing, to bring a quickening and a healing, okay? That's what the fat represents. And it's also, his sword is covered with blood. His blood represents a rebirth, right? The blood of Jesus was shed so that we could be born again, reconciled with God, right? Detached from our sin and born again, pure in our salvation. And the oxen that he's referencing, they represent power, because you really couldn't shepherd, you couldn't keep a large plot of land without oxen, because they did the physical brunt of the work, right? They're the brawn behind the abundance. And so when the Lord is saying he's raising his sword against these things, our arrogance, right? And our own sin, our own idolatry of ourselves, it strips us of his healing, of the rebirth that's possible through him, and of his power. So we think we're holding on to our own power through our own arrogance, but really we're stripping ourselves of all healing power and reconciliation.
Wow.
Verse 13 says, "The one who breaks out will go before them. They will break out and pass through the gate. They will leave by it. They will pass on, their king before them, the Lord at their head."
All right. Well, chapter 2 was packed, but chapter 3?
Let's jump right in.
Let's just go. Let's go. Chapter 3, verse 1. "But I said, hear, leaders of Jacob, rulers of the house of Israel. Isn't it your job to know justice? You who hate good and love evil, who tear the skin off them and the flesh off their bones, who devour the flesh of my people, tear off their skin, break their bones in pieces, and spread them out as if in a pot, like meat in a kettle. Then you beg the Lord for help in times of trouble? Do you really expect him to answer? After all the evil you have done, he won't even look at you." We have to understand that he is our Father. There is this big theme, discussion, argument, topic, hot topic of Christianity, and it's about the prosperity gospel.
Okay.
And a lot of people will say like, oh, like you push the prosperity gospel too much and not like the trueness of like God and how he will come to like destroy. And then on the other side, it's like the people are like, it's not like overly pushing the prosperity gospel. It's just like understanding God's grace. How can you not like be so joyful and want to talk about it and just lift it high? Mm-hmm. And like, I just think, yeah, like understand he is graceful and patient and good and kind and perfect in every way. But at the same time, that is your Father, and he will give you a spanking if you acting up. He the one who says, spare the rod, spoil the child, okay? Yeah, there is a lot of push about the prosperity gospel, but it's because God is so good. But at the same time, like, I do understand on the other side what they're saying too, is like, just don't lose the fact that like, yeah, he's good, but he don't play. So
you can't have one without the other.
You can't, and it's like, and it's not that it's bad though. Like, you know, like right. I feel like it's like a topic that's like people are on such polar opposite ends about, and it's just like
he's a full God.
Exactly.
Yeah.
God is full.
Yeah.
And so all of this is God. Like all parts of him is him. So we have to embrace all of what God is. And he says, you beg the Lord for help, and you expect him to answer after all the evil you've done. Like, understand that God wants us to repent. He wants us to turn. He wants us to come back to him. And he gives us so many opportunities to do that. Every day you have another opportunity to repent and come to Christ and give your life to him. You have another opportunity for surrender. He is patient because he is allowing us to have this time, because he wants us to do that. He wants us to come and surrender. But at the same time, you can only wrestle with and argue with your toddler for so long. And like, that's how I feel like it is. It's like, we're his children. You're only going to argue with them for so long before you just leave them to their own devices. Okay, you guys insist. You insist that your way is so much better. You insist that you know so much better. So like, yeah, no, I'm going to let you suffer for a little bit. And the thing is, like, he will let us suffer for a little bit.
For us to realize why we need him.
But at the same time, just because he lets us suffer for a little bit doesn't mean that he's not going to welcome us back and hold our hand and help us.
Whole time
you know,
love,
he knows.
Open arms.
Like, he knows that we're stubborn, and so he's going to let you suffer when you're being stubborn. But he knows that he can open his arms and welcome you back in after. So in that verse, he's like, y'all did all this. Now you're sitting here crying like you want some help. He's not answering you right now. He's going to let you sit. You made a bed. He's going to let you lay in it for a little bit. So lay in your bed. So then in verse 5, he says, this is what the Lord says. You false prophets are leading my people astray. You promised peace for those who give you food, but you declare war on those who refuse to feed you.
Ooh, that was a mouthful.
Now the night will close around you, cutting off all your visions. Darkness will cover you, putting an end to your predictions. The sun will set for you, prophets, and your day will come to an end. When he says prophets there, he's talking false prophets. Let's just clarify that. Then you seers will be put to shame, and you fortune tellers will be disgraced, and you will cover your faces because there's no answer from God. And when he's talking about this, he's saying that all of these false prophets, all of these fortune tellers and people who are giving you predictions and claiming to be prophets, but they are false prophets, that there is coming an end for that, and that he is going to shame them because of their behavior. Because if you jump down to verse 11, he says that you prophets won't prophesy unless you are paid. So it's your intention as a false prophet was never to actually prophesy and bring about the good news, or to bring his word, or to bring the people closer to God, because you're chasing a paycheck and he doesn't like that. So he's saying that that is all going to come to an end, and you're going to cover your faces because there will be no answer from God.
Wow. In verse 8, Micah says, but as for me, I'm filled with power, with the Spirit of the Lord. I'm filled with justice and strength, to boldly declare Israel's sin and rebellion. I had to stop right there.
Boldly, because he's bold.
Very bold. Yeah.
Oh, he's bold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for the spirit of boldness, call on Micah. So he's giving us an example. So he's contrasting himself with the culture. He's contrasting himself, God working through him, versus what's popular. So this is his contrast moment. But as for me, here's what the Spirit of the Lord brings. This is what the spirit of darkness brings over y'all and your idols. But here's what the Spirit of the Lord brings. Power, right? And these are like themes, because if we go back to the last chapter, he mentioned oxen, which, like power. I said, that is the power, right? This is before horsepower. We're talking about oxen power. He said it brings justice, it brings reconciliation, rebirth, like the blood, okay? Following through with his theme of what, the Spirit of the Lord brings, also as prophesied through his teacher, the prophet Isaiah. So he brings about justice, right? And also he brings about might. In another translation, it says might. And this is described as the strength of a natural force. So this is like a healing, right? A supernatural healing. So this is just, I'm following through with themes that the Lord is showing me as we're digging into the prophet Micah, that the Spirit of the Lord brings about and can take away power, justice, and might, or healing.
That part.
Yeah. And so he's letting y'all know, like, this is who I serve. This is who I come in the name of. This is what we're about over here. Because at this time, the culture is mistaking God for weak. They're mistaking God for complacent. They're mistaking God for, what's the word for you? Apathetic.
Yeah. And you know, with you saying that's kind of what I was talking about with the prosperity gospel.
Mm-hmm.
That's what their whole argument.
The contrast.
That's the not the people who follow the prosperity gospel, but the ones who are like against it. That's what their point is that y'all got God twisted. You thinking he's weak. You thinking like he's just so nice. Like you thinking you can get over on him.
Right.
Like
right.
He's not.
He sees everything.
He sees everything.
Yeah, and he's mighty.
Yeah, so it's like you're missing it. Like he is so good and he is so just and he is so kind and so forgiving, but he is also mighty.
Yeah.
He is a mighty God.
You're not just going to pervert justice and then think you can call on his name and that he would see you or that he would answer you. That's not how it works. Because God wanted relationship with us from the beginning. That's why he sent Jesus. So if you're not in relationship with him, you can't get the relationship benefits, baby. Jumping down to verse 9, it says, "Listen to me, you leaders of Israel. You hate justice and twist all that's right. Mm-hmm. You're building Jerusalem on a foundation of murder and corruption.
Wow.
You rulers make decisions based on bribes. You priests teach God's law only for a price. You prophets won't prophesy unless you're paid. Mm-hmm. Yet all of you claim to depend on the Lord. No harm can come to us, you say, for the Lord is here among us. Because of you, Mount Zion will be plowed like an open field. Jerusalem will be reduced to ruins. A thicket will grow on the heights where the temple now stands."
So this whole portion of his prophecy and understanding the historical context of when it was written, this entire prophecy came to pass in like 500 something BC or 600 something BC, something like that.
She a historian
or whatever. But so this actually all did come to pass, like exactly how he said.
Wow.
But then I'm drawn back to Ecclesiastes.
Okay.
Ecclesiastes 1, when he says, history repeats itself, everything is the same under the sun. So like this prophecy came to pass and like it's coming to pass again. So just because at the time he wrote it, everything he said already has come to pass, does not mean that it does not still hold relevance today. Because history repeats itself, and everything he's talking about right now, everything you just read, is such a reflection of what our world is right now.
Wow.
That's exactly what's happening in our world right now. It is going to come to pass again, this same prophecy, and it will happen again and again until God
until he comes back.
Yeah. And Jesus is coming back.
We don't know when, but we do know yes.
But we know he is, yes. And this is just such a clear sign, because all of it is exactly what's happening in our world now. Y'all are gonna want to tune in for the second half of this, because the second half is why we started this Bible study. I was sitting there reading it and I was like, hold up. Mina, we gotta do the whole book. We gotta do the whole book. We gotta talk about it, because this prophecy is so strong. And the fact that it's a prophecy that was written after Isaiah, but it stemmed from Isaiah's prophecy. So Isaiah's prophecy came to pass.
Yes.
Then Micah had
came to pass.
Another prophecy stemming from Isaiah that came to pass. And now his prophecy is again going to come to pass.
Lord.
And we're going to talk about how John prophesied the same thing. Join us for part 2.
See you in the next video. Bye.